record this. So we're going to do question 10 on the homework from module 2. So let's go take a look. And I'll let you display. Are you okay displaying, or do you want me to run with it?
No, I think I got it.
Cool.
Okay. Can y'all see it?
Yep. By the way, I'm going to give you a little trick. Go into advanced share. So when you do a share screen, there's a basic and advanced. Go into advanced and then do portions of screen. So share screen, base the advanced tab on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then go to portions of screen. So that looked a little small to me, and I just want everybody else to be able to see it as well as myself. So when you click on that, there you go. Now you can adjust the left, right, top, and bottom bars, and it looks a lot bigger. It's a cool feature built into Zoom. So go ahead and move the left bar to the right, and whatever bars you want to see on screen, the segment that we're looking at. So, yep, scroll up or move the bars. That's question 9. There's question 10. Perfect. Okay. So complete the following table. Okay. Using knowledge of accounting, relation to complete the following table. So you're given beginning retained earnings. You've got net income, loss. Okay, well, let's go backwards. The ones with check marks, those were not given to you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go through and we'll take a look at what are we given? We're giving net income. We're giving beginning retained earnings. We're giving dividends. We're giving ending retained earnings. So using that formula for 2011, we start beginning is 33,586 plus 21 plus X minus 10,000 equals 45,128. Are you okay with that algebra? Putting X where that 21,542 is?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so are you okay with the net income or net loss? So you're going to plug that. So 30,000 plus X minus 10 equals 45,1. And when you do the math, four function math, you get 21,542. What might be confusing you, once you've done that, you say, okay, my beginning retained earnings better match my ending retained earnings last year. Right? So that 45,128 ending retained earnings of 2011 better be the same as my beginning retained earnings in 2012. Same thing on a cash flow statement. My ending cash better match my balance sheet, my beginning cash. That's going to be the statement, match the statement of cash flows for cash on the balance sheet. So this 45,128 is now in the beginning retained earnings. Is that a problem? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you say, well, I've got my formula. I'm going to take my 45,128. I'm going to add my net income. I'm going to subtract my net loss. I'm going to subtract my dividends or net loss if there was one, and end up with ending retained earnings. In this case, you got $61,000. 45 plus 15,8 minus 0 equals my ending retained earnings. So I'm going to take over the screen right now. And I'm going to go back and say, all you need to worry about is our retained earnings formula. And if you grid it for beginning retained earnings plus net income minus dividends minus stock buyback equals ending retained earnings. And we go one step further. This is say 2021. I'm going to go over here to 2022. My ending retained earnings is the same as better match. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add my net income. Subtract my dividends if there are any. The ending retained earnings 2022. This is any retained earnings 2021. Does that make sense? So that's the big picture. And next year's beginning retained earnings 2023 is going to be the same as ending retained earnings 2022. We can do this forever. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that helpful?
Yep.
Good. Now, let me go back there for a second, because you might get a question, like it was on the quiz, and say, I'm given the ending retained earnings, I'm giving the dividends and net income, what's my beginning retained earnings? So if I go ahead and use this formula, beginning retained earnings plus net income minus dividends minus stock buyback equals ending retained earnings. I'm going to have beginning retained earnings equals ending retained earnings minus net income plus dividends plus stock buyback. Just by the algebra definition, right? The same way we were on a balance sheet, it's assets equals liabilities plus equity. And assets minus liabilities equals equity. Just the basic algebra, moving the equations around. Make sense?
Yes.
It does take practice. I'm not going to belittle it or begrudge it saying, oh yeah, you should do this. You should know this. This is not natural. Accounting is not natural, but it needs to become natural. And it will become natural. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you experience it. Any other module 2 questions or module 3 or module 1 questions? I won't do module 4 yet, because that's not due for a while. Are you guys watching the videos that I produce? And be honest. Are they useful? Are they helpful? Again, be honest. Are you watching the other videos, the supplemental videos? You looked at some of those? And Ben and Boz, Polk, do you mind giving up conversation about Ben and Boz? You started talking about that before we recorded and before.
I find it useful because they just break it down. It's a bit comedic, and it's taken like the balance sheet, which they had Amazon or Nike on, and they broke it down talking about, well, I thought Nike was broke. And then you go look at their total assets or their equity. Okay, now I see where they made their money at. And if you can understand what Dr. Dell's saying in the lecture and then have it broke down to extremely layman's terms, it's beneficial because just like you said, Lindsay, I don't speak accounting. I don't do accounting. It's not my world.
Yet.
So,
we'll get you there. Yet.
you keep doing this yet thing. We got 90 days together. You got like 30 years of playing this game, sir.
I granted, but my students walk away with a pretty good understanding, hopefully. And you will be no exception, I assure you.
All right.
But I will say, it's Ben, BENANDBOZ.com. It's in the materials, it's on the syllabus. They have pretty good Excel videos and they have pretty good chapter by chapter. And you're right, it puts this material in English. And they're a tag team, an older guy and a younger guy. They're having a good time. And so there's some entertainment value too. It's not quite as good as most YouTube videos you might use for entertainment, but it might help your accounting understanding, going beyond the lectures and the readings. It reinforces. So it might be a good tool to reinforce before exams or before a quiz. Those are tools that are going to reinforce and help you internalize the terminology and make sense of it. Anything else in your minds?
Why is it that companies that sustain higher levels of debt, why does that mean that they have more stable and positive cash flows?
Well, if you take on more debt, you take out a loan, what happens? You get cash. Now, I'm not going to say they're actually higher risk with more debt, because they got to pay that debt back eventually. And they have to pay interest on that debt when they take out loans. But the whole, just the idea of increasing debt is going to increase cash. I took out a loan, that's positive cash. But when I have to pay that loan back, that's a negative cash flow. So the comeuppance is coming. I'm gonna have to pay it back eventually. So initially, like financing, I attract a whole bunch of investors. Great, I got a whole bunch of money coming in. But eventually, I may buy back stock. I may pay dividends. So it's gonna be a negative impact on cash. So those ideas, cash is directly related, money coming in. I might have, and we saw it earlier today, I might have a bunch of sales, but I don't have any cash coming in from the sales because they're receivables. Or I borrowed money in the form of payables from my vendors. I say, you know what? I borrowed $100,000 and I'll pay you back in 60 days. But you sent me the stuff in advance. So my inventories went up, or supplies or building, whatever I bought. And my payables went up, my liabilities went up. Technically, that is a source of funds when your liabilities go up. And technically, it's a use of funds when your receivables go up. When your receivables goes down, it means somebody just paid your bill. Receivables goes down, you got positive, you got cash coming in. So when we see the statement of cash flows, we'll play with that a little more. And I don't mind saying it now, and I'm not trying to confuse you, other than you ask the question of, why does my cash flow go up when I take on a loan? Oh, because I'm getting cash. Someone wrote me a check and said, here's some money. Now I may spend it. By the time I spend it, that takes cash out of its hill. So that's where that's going. And then eventually I got to pay back that loan. So I've got financing negative cash flow, or a use of funds as opposed to a source. Are we on the same page? Did that help at all, or did that?
Yeah, no, it did. I think what threw me off was they use the word stable. And in my mind, I was like, if the company's stable and has positive cash, why do they need to use debt? But the way you just explained it makes sense.
Well, think about it. If you buy $100 million worth of inventory, where are you going to get the $100 million? I guess I either get it from my investors, or I issue bonds or get some debt, or I go to the bank and said, I need some money to buy some inventory. The higher the percentage of debt versus equity. So if I'm 50-50 debt equity, I'm less risky than if I'm 90% debt and 10% equity. Because I don't have much of a cushion in my equity to take losses. And I still have to pay interest on the debt as I go. And we'll see, we'll talk more about that when we start evaluating and doing analysis. But right now, we're still getting through the terminology. We're still getting into the relationships. We're still getting into the big picture. By the way, Kodak used to have a philosophy of zero debt. They paid all their bills. They didn't believe in carrying debt. Don't want to look where Kodak is now. Okay. So, but that was maybe for other reasons. That's the game. Anything else for tonight? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.